Pushkin.
Brandi Carlile's knack for uplifting the musicians she loves is exemplary. After her own hard-earned ascent to success over the course of 7 studio albums, Brandi started to turn her sights to producing albums for artists she deeply admires, including Tanya Tucker, who she's been on broken record with in the past, but also Brandy Clark. Then there's Joni Mitchell, who, thanks to Brandi's encouragement, has recently made a glorious return to performing live. Brandi's passion for the projects she works on is infectious. The latest is an EP she produced for an 18-year-old singer-songwriter named Tish Melton. The EP is called When We're Older. Over the course of the 5-song collection, Tish pulls influence from artists like Phoebe and Lucy Dacus. Tish, whose mom is the New York Times bestselling author Glennon Doyle, is teeming with talent on her EP, which includes heartfelt songs that expertly capture a wise beyond her years self-assuredness. On today's episode, Leah Rose talks to Tish Melton and Brandi Carlile about their creative partnership and the impermeable sense of self Brandi has found in both Tish and Joni Mitchell. And Brandi teases her upcoming collaboration album that she calls monumental. And she talks about why she thinks Beyoncé might be country music's saving grace. This is Broken Record, liner notes for the digital age. I'm Justin Richmond. Here's Leah Rose's conversation with Tish Melton and Brandi Carlile.
Well, thank you both so much for doing this. I'm super excited to hear about how this album came to be. I guess let's start, Brandi. Tell me how you first met Tish and how you then found out that she was a musician.
Well, our families are friends, so that might make you think that, because of proximity to one another or just an affection that we have for one another, that would draw us to work together or me to want to work with Tish. But actually, it's quite pure. Like, I just saw her trajectory from this interested young person, like learning an instrument and starting to sing covers, to like starting to write in really pure, interesting and unaffected ways, to like actually becoming a damn good writer, to becoming so impressed that I was like a bit jealous. And that's the point where we kind of met and decided to go in and record some things, because why not,
Yeah.
But it was a really natural trajectory of me gaining affection and then admiration for a songwriter that was honestly just impressing me. And proximity to our families kind of phased out as one of the reasons why we worked together in the end. Don't you think, Tish?
Yeah.
And then when you say she was writing in unaffected ways, what do you mean by that?
I just mean that Tish is like a part of a songwriting contingency that I have like a lot of respect for. And I actually think she's one of the best at it, where she's so innocently and with such wisdom writing about exactly who she is right where she is. She's like the Eckhart Tolle, prime example of a songwriter like living in the moment in the age that they are, And I remember coming up in roots and Americana and folk music and writing about hopping trains and the Dust Bowl and shit. Like, I wasn't talking about getting behind the wheel of a car for the first time and being sad that I was suddenly an adult, because that would have revealed that I was not, in fact, an adult, and I wanted to be taken seriously in a way that Tish is unaffected by, and I'm in awe of it.
Tish, are you aware that you have that ability?
I mean, Brandi was the first person to tell me that, but my mom had always told me that I was a very unaffected, steady person. So I think the fact that that's transferred into my music, I'm glad that I have a sense of self that kind of carries through both those things.
You do, yeah.
Brandi, when you're working with Tish and you're reading her lyrics or you're hearing the lyrics, does it take you at all back to where you were when you were 17, 18? And does it make you sort of compare your experience?
Yeah, kind of, especially when, we did an interview recently where somebody asked her who specifically she was singing about in a certain song. And I watched her kind of try to grasp for what that is, because I sense that feeling of I remember writing really important and profound self-revealing things about myself, probably not as concisely as Tish does, but with the same intent, and not knowing what it was about until 15 years later, and looking back on it, realizing the person that influenced that, or the moment or the thing that influenced that, and also realize that these are habits I'm repeating into middle age.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I do. I see real parallels, and I see someone that's better than I was by any measure, just better. And I just think it's kind of intoxicating.
I'm curious about your perspective now, having worked so much with Joni, who's 80, and Tish is now, you just turned 18, right?
Yeah.
So Tish is 18, and then Brandy, you're somewhere in the middle. I don't want to out you. But like, what has that made you think about the lifespan of emotional life?
Yeah, it's weird. It kind of begins and ends similarly. I've seen that happen. It's like this rainbow of starting with a really strong sense of self, an impermeable sense of self, and then ending with a really strong, impermeable sense of self. And how those two shining moments might actually be the brightest that we ever shine. It might actually be the time that we're most important to the world. And those are the times we get listened to the least, when we're either too young or too old. So I really do see this just incredible commonality. And that's why I've really loved drawing young people to Joni, physically to Joni, to her, to sit at her feet with a guitar and sing their songs for her, like in her living room, and watch that exchange of purity and energy, and knowing that, like, yeah, this might actually be a sweet spot.
Can you tell us about any young artists that you've brought to collaborate with Joni, or just to sit with her, play with her?
Oh, yeah. I mean, just the most recent one would just be at the Grammys, just being on that floor with Joan and seeing all these incredible young songwriters. And I do think, I'm not being hyperbolic when I say I think we're in a real moment, like a Laurel Canyon level moment of self-revelation in songwriting. And Tish is a huge part of this. Like, I think one of the strongest and most powerful voices doing it. And so I really want her EP to be heard by people of all ages, because I think she's very important. But sitting on the floor of the Grammys and watching those young artists, they knew it. They knew before we got there. They have her lyrics tattooed on their arms and shit, like Gracie Abrams walked up to me and she said something about how she likes my music or whatever, and I completely shrugged it off. I didn't even I actually had to write her something and apologize. I just immediately knew what you need, what you're here for, honestly, is to be introduced to Joni. So I just didn't even listen to her. I just took her by the hand and I said, Joni, this is a beautiful songwriter. This is a beautiful young person that you mean really a lot to, and I want to introduce you guys. And so Joni was lovely, and they took a picture, and it became a big moment for Gracie in her life. And I've got to facilitate a few of those moments of full circle connectedness between the two souls that know who they are and get listened to the least, the oldest and the youngest.
That's so incredible.
Yeah, we've seen it happen. The Joni jams have been really cool. And I remember watching Maggie Rogers have the same experience, and Harry Styles have the same experience. And then we've all had the same experience, I think that bringing older and younger people together is paramount, and it finally feels possible.
Yeah, it was just so special seeing Brandy introduce Joni and being so close to her, and then seeing the entire musical family that I've been introduced to just these past couple years and spent so much time with on stage with her, while which Joni Mitchell is the start of all the songwriting that everyone's doing. And I feel like Brandy said, what everyone's really returning back to now. Mm-hmm. And then her singing both sides now, I was it was just all too, I just lost it. And I did not recover for I just had to sit there in silence afterwards.
I wish you'd been there with me.
I know. I was so sad I wasn't there. I was telling my mom, I was I feel I should have been there. It feels that I was supposed to be there. But there'll be another opportunity, I hope.
Dude, it was pretty special.
She's come up more in Broken Record conversations and interviews than any other artist, hands down, from every genre. Everybody always references Joni Mitchell, and it's just incredible, the power and the reach.
She's poet laureate for our entire industry. There's everybody can recognize themselves in her in one way or another, and she's just cool.
Do you think she gets it, or it doesn't matter?
She accepts it and she gets it, but she's not heady about it. She doesn't want to dissect it. She just wants to be Joni Mitchell. And there's just something, not unlike you, Tish, very steady about Joan nowadays.
Yeah, thank you, Brandy, for bringing her back into public life.
Oh my God, I'm Robin, man. She's Batman. I'm following her around, just going, this is the coolest shit I've ever seen.
It's so cool how this developed. I've heard you tell the whole story about how at first you weren't like the biggest fan when you were first getting together with Catherine, right? And Catherine was like, red flag. Like, how can you not be into Joni Mitchell?
Yeah, well, it speaks to this exact thing that Tish is so good at and so aware of that I wasn't aware of, which was that Joni Mitchell smacked of vulnerability to me. And that made me very uncomfortable. It made me uncomfortable. I was uncomfortable with my feelings. I was uncomfortable with my gender. And Joni kind of like opening herself up for the whole world to see made me feel like I would have to do that too if I listened for too long. And I wanted to be a different kind of artist at that time. And so I was a late bloomer. And I'm so envious of the fact that there's this whole wave of songwriters now that are not late bloomers and that have accepted the gift of their feelings being destigmatized by this person, whereas I was rejecting it. And when I stopped rejecting it, it made me ready for a lot of what happened to me then in my life, you know, from getting married to being a mother. I'm not saying Joni Mitchell made all those things possible. I'm just saying she was one of the steps along the way that made it so that I could actually accept that I was a feeling person.
It's incredible you have one thing to sort of point to that started the domino effect.
Yeah. And that it ended this way, that it ended with me actually being able to be by her side in times that she's vulnerable, you know? It's pretty cool.
Super cool. So when you were starting to record Tish's EP, did you, Brandy, bring any sounds or any music that you wanted Tish to hear? And same Tish, did you bring anything to Brandy that you wanted sort of like reference pieces?
Tish did.
Yeah, I brought a lot. Like, I think that was like a helpful, like, I think Brandy and I were on the same page, like from the very beginning about recording. I think part of the reason was because I had so many different reference people, because I'm just like a fangirl. Like, I go to so many concerts and I'm such a fan of all of these artists. And so I didn't think too much about it, but I just brought in like a playlist of songs that was like the clearness of Lizzie McAlpine's vocals. I would really like my vocals to sound like that. Or like the drums in this song, or like the guitar in this song, or the feeling of this song, the outro of this song. I think that directed the production a lot, especially on like the day when we were tracking it.
Yeah, Tish really knows what she likes and is very clear. Like, she doesn't just send you a song and go, how do you feel when you listen to this? She goes, I want you to listen to this vocal sound, and I want you to hear this outro this many bars in. And, you know, it's not even the guitar, it's the bell that you barely hear in the outro. Like, she's that specific about production sounds and styles. I think you'll be a producer or self-produced someday too.
Yeah, I made her listen to the end of Scott Street by Phoebe Bridgers, and I was like, just listen to the bell that's like representing her childhood, and like the little like the horn, like the bike. Oh my God. Yeah. I was like, that feeling, like that's how I wanted the sober outro to feel, like that emotional, or like that one sound just brings you back to like your childhood street, which is like exactly what that song does. Like, there's a couple songs that I just don't let myself listen to very often because I like don't want to get sick of them, and I also don't want to feel sad. And Scott Street is one of those songs.
My God, you love that song.
It's so good.
Yeah, and it was cool because, no, I didn't bring any references to the table until she would play me those things, because what would happen is, you know, I already felt a little underqualified to be the producer for Tish on this project, just because I felt like sonically and just age-wise that she was kind of in a realm that I didn't really understand yet, you know? And so when she started playing me Phoebe Bridgers, I'd be like, oh, you like this? Check out Elliott Smith. Or, you know, she'd play me these bands and I'd be like, oh, you wait until I introduce you to Team Dresch and Slater Kinney. Well, we're about to get all up in the butchies now, and like, you're going to listen to this music, you know, from like Portland and Seattle that was like in my foundations. And I realized that like we kind of have the same heroes, even if they're separated by a generation or two. Music is so ageless that you can just sort of come across those divides if you can see who influenced who. So it was really cool. Yeah.
What did you think of the older stuff, Tish?
I mean, I'm like such a music nerd that like I like was well aware of like Elliot being such like an influence to Phoebe. Like I
Really?
I just do research when like I just know it's horrible. I just am like constantly doing research on everyone's like personal life, the musicians that I know and like their influences. So I knew that, but there's a lot of stuff that like you wouldn't think that it related. Like remember when you showed me the Call Your Girlfriend song? That was like a cover of another song, and it's like I don't even remember what song you were like, oh, this is influenced by that. But there's so many different aspects of it that like connected and you wouldn't expect it to.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that like Phoebe's influences being Brandy's influences, I think that pipeline was really cool.
It revealed itself in the studio and it made me feel so cool. Like I felt suddenly so capable of doing the job and not letting Tish down. Because not only did I know what she was wanting, but I knew where it came from even. Mm-hmm. And that is something I'm going to take forward with me forever, is to not have that kind of inadequacy creep in to my thinking anymore.
Mm-hmm. I saw, Brandy, your name is all over the credits on the EP. You're playing dulcimer, you're playing banjo, acoustic guitar, electric guitar, backup vocals. Can you describe your approach as a producer? A producer can mean so many things.
Yeah.
How do you approach the job?
Well, it's so by artist, you know. I've had projects I've produced where I haven't touched an instrument. I'm not a aficionado. I'm not an engineer. So I have like a few engineers that they're like limbs to me. I love them and trust them so much. With Tish, though, it's because it's always by artist, like per artist. It was like a totally unique process where we basically started one day at Shangri-La, which is the last place I was when I did this podcast. We started in one day and we got basic tracks where we tried to like strap this band to Tish's innate rhythm while she played guitar, and we kind of created basic tracks. Some we used, some we didn't. When we left Shangri-La, we came to Seattle in this weird little treehouse room that you see up here, and we just basically became mixologists, like alchemists, building rocket ships and turning metal into other metals, and we just created sounds together. So I'm on there like as playing instruments, but really what it was just both of us experimenting with instruments we didn't even really fully know how to play all the time. And I love when those kinds of sounds come across. You can't fake that shit. You can't fake that seeking ambience. And that's one of my favorite parts about this record is you just hear scratches and pings and sounds that are accidents that are found in joy and fun.
And how about you, Brandy? Are you starting to work on your own stuff?
I just finished a project that is like monumental for me that I can't talk about, but you'll find out about very soon. And I did some of the great, in my opinion, the most important writing I've ever done. And I feel very satisfied as a writer in that sense. I can't believe the things that got accomplished in that 3 weeks.
Is it a collaboration album with an older artist who we all know and love?
It very well may be.
A legacy artist. Wow, that's incredible.
But there is nothing legacy about it. It's very here and now and just enormous.
That's exciting.
It's very exciting. So that's like my next like big project. And then after that, I'm going to rediscover who Brandi Carlile is. Like everything. Like I want different hair. I want different clothes.
Dude, you have good hair right now.
Oh, do I? I'm wondering. Like I tried a new thing at the Grammys. I liked it, but
oh my God. I thought I was watching like a rerun of an old Grammys or something because your hair was so different. Like I thought it looked great, but I was like, wait, I didn't even recognize you for a second.
I'm trying to figure out who I am next. I don't know. You know, I know who you are. That's why I'm not taking any more production roles for a while. I'm going to figure it out though. Tish, you could tell me who I am next, or at least give me some tips on a haircut.
How are you feeling about everybody doing country albums all of a sudden? Like Beyonce just announced she's doing her country album and Lana Del Rey's doing a country album.
Well, I think that country music as an institution is fundamentally broken. So just tell you how I really feel about that. I think it's a problem. It's a cultural problem we have in America, is the way that genre has played itself out as a ostracizing political tool in a way to divide people. I'm not okay with it. I don't like country radio. As it pertains to music and culture, I'm a country person. You know, I'm a chicken farming fisherman cowgirl, and I love rural music, rural lyrics, Americana music, roots music, folk music. And I love how marginalized people, particularly people of color, are the architects of that kind of music. So whenever Beyonce says she's doing a country album, I'm willing to rethink my feelings about country from the foundation up. And I would think that if anybody could change it, I would damn sure bet it'd be her. So go, babe. But I appreciate the idea of changing it more than the idea of joining it.
We're going to take a quick break and then come back with more from Leah Rose, Tish Melton, and Brandi Carlile. We're back with more from Tish Melton and Brandi Carlile.
Is The Chase the first song on the EP?
Yeah.
There's a little, I think it's 30-second little synth intro. Mm-hmm. And it really feels like you're opening a door and walking into Tish's world. It's sort of like this little like transitory little piece, and then the song starts. But I wanted to hear your intention with that.
I'm so glad you said that. I have an obsession with intros and outros. Yeah. I feel like they're the most important part of a song. Because I do I don't know, there's a structure of a song that I don't follow all the time, but I follow a lot of the time. And that gets boring to me. So either I change up the structure or I put a weird intro on it. And we were back and forth on the intro because I remember we're okay, it doesn't fit the song. We're taking it out because we want it to be more grungy. But then the 90s intro, I just love synthy intros, the outro of Sober.
Me too.
Or the big world that it creates. I don't think that any of those songs would be the same without one.
Yeah.
And then I also just think it makes the chase more fun and unexpected. You just don't expect that. I don't know, you expect a 90s sounding synth song, and then the guitar, the muddy guitar starts. I don't know, I just think it changes it a lot.
Yeah, it does. It totally does. I remember going back and forth on that intro, and most things, as a producer, I default to the artist's certainty. When they are certain, that's when you have to acquiesce. It becomes really important. And I thought I'm from Seattle. I thought The Chase sounded like it started like a Nirvana song. It's it just felt to me just garagey. And I loved that this EP started out that way, But then it's then the artist comes along, they tell you who they are. And Tish is genuinely loves these cinematic intros and outros, and she loved this intro. So we started pulling each other across the center line, when I had to be faced with the fact that this thing was wanted on the beginning of this EP, I had to sort of get into, well, what don't I like about it exactly? Why does it bother me? And so we started pulling a few elements out and adding a few elements in, and I think by the end of it, I think that the beaker just got filled with the right kind of solution, and it fit, and she was right about it. Of course she's right about it. It's her.
It's also so bold. At first, if I put a big cinematic intro or outro on a song, I was worried that people would be like, oh, who does she think she is? Whatever. But it's I hope people say that. I hope I do bold things and people are taken aback by it a bit.
God, you hope people say that?
Yeah. I don't know.
I love that.
I think that that's a, I want to do bold things or things that aren't expected. That's also why I like that these specific songs are on the EP, because all of them are so different. Mm-hmm. And it's I was just talking about how, since I'm so new, everything feels like a first impression, that's why there was a lot of pressure putting out a first song, because all the songs are so different. But I don't think that there's any one impression of me that you get on the EP other than I'm experimenting too. And I have so many different feelings and things that I want to say.
Yep.
And all of these songs are so different because there's so many different things that I want to do, and I just want to do them.
No, it's amazing. That's what comes across. There's a through line, which is that you can hear that this is authentically one artist. It's one artist, but it doesn't ever get mired into one thing. One thing is epic, one thing's a heartbreaking ballad. One of these things is just like a Ramones song. So it's not erratic. There's a through line, but it's also you can't skip any of these songs because each one is such a different journey for only a 5-song collection. It's quite epic. That's one of the reasons why I thought, oh God, maybe it needs to be an album, because we need more time to even out these spikes and dives that are in this thing. And that the only real through line is your steady rhythm guitar playing and your steady voice. But then I started to really like that. It's the Boy Genius record, I think, achieves that really well, where, you've got Cool About It, and then you've got True Blue, and then you've got Strong Enough, and you got the song at the beginning. They're all so different, but that's 3 songwriters behaving 3 different ways. And you're one songwriter, but you definitely have the ability to kind of head down some interesting tributaries, I think because of who influences you. And one thing about it is no matter which tributary you go down and how turbulent it is, you are still steady. I don't know about that word. We keep using that word, Tish. What do you think about it?
I like it. I just don't want, I get worried that it's like, oh, like boring. Like I want to like make unexpected, like it's like, there's like a part of me that remains steady, but I don't want that to get confused with like the same all the time.
I would say steady. I would say that about The Cure. And I would say that about Bruce Springsteen. Like,
it's reliable.
Well, yeah. And it's like, it's immovable is what it is. Like, you know that like as an audience member, you're not affecting the way Bruce Springsteen performs. He's doing that. You know, it's not to be confused with placid or linear. It's just immovable. It's just formidable. Yeah, maybe we need to come up with a different word other than steady, but for some reason that just always like neon lights in my head.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you about the song, Michelle. It's a song about friendship. You know, when a friendship dissolves, it can be as heartbreaking as a romantic relationship breaking up. It's especially intense when you're a teenager, but it's also intense in middle age. So how did that song come to be?
I actually wrote that song, like, two of my friends had like a really weird, like giving from one person and taking from another person, but it kind of helped me really understand one of their perspectives, because I think a lot of teenage relationships is like feeling like you're too much, or like feeling so much for that person and you don't know how to express that in a way that doesn't put too much pressure on them. Like the narrator was just giving too much to Michelle, and it's not Michelle's fault for not reciprocating it, because she's her own person and like it's not her job to. But then you also just feel both so bad for both parties in the story, which I like about it, because I think there's really no right answer, especially in like girl friendships where there's so much like passion there,
which are so intense.
It's so intense. Like those, like my most intense relationships have been like girl friendships, which like it's like hard to differentiate between what's like feelings that like you just like don't explain, or like what's like actually just like a queer like there's so many layers to it. But like that came from me just trying to better understand one of my friends.
Yeah. Brandy, were you able to relate to that song with your own experience with friendships changing as you've gotten older, or maybe as you've gotten more successful?
I mean, absolutely. It's like, it's already strange, you know, when you're queer, to try and figure out identify what those feelings are, where they're coming from, how you want to move forward with it. And those friendships change. I mean, like, you know, I'm a lesbian, like we literally like wind up married to each other's partners and shit, and like staying best friends with our ex. And it's like these friendships get really ambiguous. So a song I'll write about a totally platonic relationship might wind up being romantic eventually, and then platonic again. So yeah, I think that, that's one thing, Tish, that's so ageless, is that friendships and connections between women and queer people are so bizarre and unquantifiable. And you might find yourself in love with Michelle someday. You might find yourself being Michelle someday. And then that song just changes. It just changes, and it fits you like this new coat that you do or don't want to wear, but it's on you, you know?
Yeah.
And I've written songs about a romantic relationship, and then 10 years later, someone I know dies, and I realized that song was actually written about that moment that I didn't even know would exist yet. It's such a funny thing what songs do to you throughout life, because they're like little pieces of your soul, and you don't realize it, but like you're going to repeat all of these thoughts and mistakes. And it's not that we can't grow or change, it's just that we don't.
Yeah. So when you say that you write a song and then later it morphs into a different meaning, is it like a premonition?
I think it might be
about something.
Yeah, like I'm not going to get too into it, like, because I'll sound crazy, but I'm not totally sure that time is. We've talked about this too, Tish.
Oh my
like,
gosh,
linear.
I was just thinking about this the other day.
Yeah, sometimes I think we're just remembering when we think we're like arrogant enough to be manifesting something for ourselves, that we're just remembering it, you know. And like I wrote a song called Cannonball one time about one of my like high school best friends that was off to do his second tour in Iraq. And then 10 years later, I fell in love. I had an unrequited love affair with someone. And I suddenly realized Cannonball could only have ever been about that, you know, and it wasn't even related. Or
so a totally different person?
totally different person, but I was still me. So the feelings I was having of anxiety and unrequited love would just fit this new, totally different scenario. So it's like you think you're writing about Michelle or Michelle's friend, but it's like it really is you.
Yeah. And a lot of the times for me, like people ask me a lot who a specific song is about, and I have clear answers for a lot of them, but like a lot of times it was like I was feeling like I want a song to feel a certain way. And it like I can't, like when I think of Sober, like I don't think of one person that I wrote it about. Like it's like I was so obsessed with capturing a specific feeling with that song that I completely forgot to write it to anybody or for anyone, which like I feel like a lot of people say that that's like the opposite thing to do. Like I think it was like Elizabeth Gilbert who said like when you're writing, always write to somebody or like specifically for somebody. But that's just like not, I don't do that very often. Maybe it's like too vulnerable or something, but like a lot of times I'm writing about a feeling rather than a person or an experience.
Wow. And then knowing it could change.
Yeah. Like I'm sure Sober will like have an entirely different meaning.
I feel like as a bird's eye view, a person having a bird's eye view to that song, you know, you are addressing imposter syndrome in the end when you're reading the Leonard Cohen poem. You live in a household and have grown up in a family where sobriety is an issue. It's talked about, you know, we're both like Al-Anon kids, so I recognize that when I see it. You're young and all your friends are starting to want to be intoxicated during all their celebrations and their events. And there are probably things about that because you're an insightful person that you want to remember without that sheen of, you know, intoxication over it. And so you have all these different reasons to write a song like that. And you never really need to explain the mystery to anybody. Those are all true things floating around in the ether for you.
Yeah.
As songwriters, do you think if you explain too much about your songs or the inspirations behind your songs that it takes something away from the writing?
That's happened to me like when an artist does that. So I'm sure it's like I try to keep from doing that because there's this one Adrian Lenker song that I thought was like the most romantic song ever. And then I go on Genius Lyrics and she's explaining that it's like literally about like depression and like loving someone too much that like they don't love you back. And now it's like changed my perception of the song so much that I like, it's like bumps me out every time I listen to it, even though I thought it was just a really cute love song. So I am very aware of that and I try not to explain it too much. But obviously, I mean, I think songs take different meanings for different people. So it's either like reminding everyone that even if I explain it a certain way, they can interpret it entirely differently, or just not explain it too much so they don't lose like any of their meaning that they found in it.
And this is hard to get your head around. You might also be the one that's most wrong about what your song is about.
Right.
Because you're the closest to it. And that like people who are fascinated with your music, you might be more right about what that girl wrote the song about than she is.
Yeah. That's like like damage. Like it was so vulnerable for me that I was like, it's not about a person. It's not about a person. Like it's not about a person. It's about a feeling. Like you guys are wrong about that. And then finally I was like, all right, like it's about this one specific person. I was just too scared to say that because it's like too vulnerable of a song.
And you don't have to ever say that if you don't want to, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can like almost, you start to get this in practice about it. Like there are people that have different philosophies about it, like Bernie Taupin, who's one of my favorite lyricists of all time. He wrote every Elton John song. But he's a fantastical lyricist. So it's like never really super self-exposing with him. It's just kind of like fantasy. But he is adamant that you never explain your lyrics because it'll start to kind of dissolve your ability to connect to the other side, like to the ether. Like if you intellectualize your gifts that are coming in from a source, that you might actually not be able to understand them as clearly, almost like a clairvoyant or a medium or something. I really subscribe to that. You might start to intellectualize the gifts that are so abstract and so esoteric so much that you stop being able to understand the childlike thing that's coming to you without you really understanding it. So as you strive to understand it, you kind of erode at the purity of it, you know?
Yeah.
That sounds kind of high-minded, but it's what happens.
Yeah.
Tish, are you the type of songwriter who's always writing? Or do you have, like, what's your process? Do you sit and are you intentional about it? Or do things come to you and you have to quickly get it down?
I mean, I always have my phone that like has a note, like my notes app. So if ever like anything comes to me when I'm like just walking around, I'll put it in there. But a lot of times I'll spend like weeks just writing down like individual lines I think are cool. And then I like feel like I'm being productive because I'm like, oh, I have one line of a song that could turn into a song. So eventually I have to sit myself down in like the quiet of my room and look back at all of like the notes app that I've been collecting. And a lot of times I can combine them because I'll go through times when I'm like feeling the same thing for a really long time. And then eventually a song comes out of it. But most of the time I have to be very intentional about it or else I just won't sit down and do it.
And how about you, Brandy? Do you have a relationship with a muse? Do you feel like things come to you at certain points?
Yeah, but I have to like sit down and open myself up to it for a few weeks or something, and just try to turn off all the other hats because I just am so passionate about other people and so many other things. And, I can get really righteously caught up in stuff like Tish's music, and other people's things. And I think that's a good thing for me because one thing I trust is that the muse is always there. And whenever I'm ready to sit down and listen, that the ideas come to me. So I've never actually been blocked, but I'll go 2 years and not write a song. It was 2 years before I wrote Between the Joke and Right on Time, and it was just like, I just trusted it. Just trusted it would come back. And I trust it'll come back again when I'm ready for it.
Do you have specific conditions that you have to create?
I mean, to be totally honest with you, I'm just not a mystical person, and I just like it. But this has got to go away.
The phone.
If this is anywhere within reach, it ain't going to happen. And I've accepted that, because I remember before those things. In fact, there's these, it's really wild. I used to write way, way, way more songs. Some of them really bad. So, I don't really write too many bad songs anymore, I don't think. But there were these two venues, because I've spent my whole adult life on the road. There were these two venues where there's no Wi-Fi, no cell service. It was like a Big Top Chautauqua in Bayfield, Wisconsin, and weirdly enough, Mishawaka Amphitheater in Colorado, the Rocky Mountains. And every time I would play that gig, I would write songs in the day. And I started to realize I was writing songs on the only day of the tour that I didn't have any connected tissue to the outside world. And it became this tradition where I go to those places and I write songs when I'm on tour.
That's so cool.
So yeah, it's a really big part of it. It's just sounding like a cliche, but having a phone.
What are you getting distracted by? Are you like on social media or what's sucking you in?
Hopefully not social media. I mean, more than I'm proud of, but I think mostly just I'm so easily activated by other people in my community. I love being in my community, showing up with people and doing collaborations and jumping out on stage in somebody else's show and orchestrating a dinner at Joni's house and being at the Graham. I mean, everything, I love it. I love having friends and being in a community and stuff like that because I didn't have that when I was in school.
Yeah, it seems so genuine and you seem so happy and like you're genuinely having so much fun collaborating with other people. It's so great to see because it seems like there's not a lot of that anymore. But like you said, I feel like maybe it's coming back.
Yeah, young people are doing it. Like really young people are doing it. And I'm like, invite me.
I feel like Noah Kahn is like leading it for like that genre. Like he could literally collaborate on every single song with someone else.
Yeah.
And it's like so I'm like it's like so new to my generation. But like it's like everything's cyclical. Like it's coming back from like older generations to now. But there's like some artists that are like really embracing it.
Dude. Yeah. And I mean, I'm not trying to be like sinister or sus about this, like, and not to do too much music industry inside ball, but I kind of feel like with streaming, when it became, we were getting all this label pressure and all this pressure from the DSPs to like collaborate artists. This happened like 6 or 7 years ago, I think, where it was like you would release a song and then the label would want you to do the collaboration version of that song, and then the streams, they calculated on the back end the same way and it would boost your numbers because then people would be listening to your version and the collaboration version that you did with somebody else. Oh. So I think it almost started out as like this industry inside ball thing for people to do collaborations so they could double their streams. But then what it turned into, unbeknownst to the suits, is that it created these fibers between people. And now you see these artists that collaborated because they got told they had to get their songs listened to, but they started coming to each other's birthday parties and they started collaborating then because they wanted to, and they joined each other's bands and they became godfathers to each other's children when they were being born. And before you know it, there's a real community around something that didn't get created for that, but has resulted in that. And I think Noah is a really good example of somebody that's just doing it because now that's what we do. And that's great.
Yeah, it's just joyful.
Yeah, I don't know if you both saw the We Are the World documentary that was on Netflix.
I'm all about it. I can't wait to see it. I want to see Bob Dylan in that thing.
It's so excellent. And you just get such a sense of everybody's personality. And
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Who's the standout to you?
Lionel Richie is like the Paul McCartney of it's a big group of people.
Okay.
And Lionel is like the leader and organizer. And you get to see Quincy at work. And the people who had solos, they set them up in a horseshoe. And they just have to step up to the mic and just go. And so you get such a sense of their voice and their talent and what they're capable of.
Wow.
And it's incredible.
Whoa. Are there people that are like really shy and then people that are encouraging them?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Huey Lewis, his legs are shaking and he has to sing after Michael Jackson.
Oh.
But it would be so cool. Brandy, I feel like you're the one to organize this. You should do a new We Are the World with this new Laurel Canyon set that you're talking about.
I'd be like, Lionel. Yeah, that's actually right. That feels right to me. No, that would be so cool. I'm so enamored with so many of these artists right now. Like, I'm just like listening to everything they do. And I'm like, oh, holy shit, those lyrics are so smart. And oh my God, that's so true. And why weren't we writing about our actual lives then? Why were we projecting into the future? Why were we trying to keep up with or mimic older people, mirror older people's lives? Like, they're not doing that. And I don't think I would have been as exposed to them as I have been if it hadn't been for Tish, a combination of the fact that they're all coming out as completely influenced by Joni, and then Tish actually sending me all these records and going, this is the kind of music I'm making and this is the scene I want to be a part of.
We're going to pause for our last break and then come back with more from Brandi Carlile and Tish Melton. We're back with the rest of Leah Rose's conversation with Brandi Carlile and Tish Melton.
Tish, tell me about how you actually started playing, because you started playing guitar first, right?
Yeah, someone asked me today, they were like, what was it like picking up a guitar and realizing you were better than a lot of people at doing it? And I was like, that is not all what happened, because I picked up the guitar and then my mom tried to teach me a couple of chords and my fingers hurt and I stormed away because I wasn't good at it and refused to do it again. And then COVID hit. I had nothing to do, so I was kind of losing my mind, and my mom put the guitar back in my hand and told me that she had signed up for lessons, just remote lessons. So the beginning of my music career was definitely against my will a little bit because I was very uncomfortable playing the guitar because I had very small hands and it was very stressful to work with a stranger. But after 3 months of playing guitar, I remember my mom saying, you're much better than I was when I played for 3 months. And so that's when I started realizing, okay, I'm okay at it. And then after about a year, I was just I realized I was a good guitar player, and I just started really writing.
So the songwriting came after learning to play guitar?
Yeah, I remember I wrote my first song after Folklore came out, because I was in Georgia in the mountains and I was listening to Folklore on a walk, and I was like, I need to write. I was so inspired and I needed to write something. And then I didn't show anyone my music because I didn't really know how to write a song. And if I look back at those songs, they're kind of horrible. I was just really young. And then Lucy Dacus came out with Home Video in 2021. And after listening to that, I was like, oh, that's how I want to write songs. I want to be that, honest and simple. And so I started really, really writing after that, and getting brave enough to show my music to other people, which just started out being my parents. And they, of course, were like, this is incredible. This is amazing. I didn't really believe anyone that I was good until Brandi said so.
Oh, what about when you got on stage for the first time? Did you believe you were good then? Because people aren't nice, and especially not in LA. And for you to get up on stage at the Troubadour and get the response that you got, I mean, hopefully at that point, it might have resonated okay, no, I belong here.
Yeah, I think I knew that I was good for my age and I was 15. And so I was or 16, and I was I know that I'm young enough that people are not going to boom. I was this will be fine. And I also knew that I had been writing for so long and performing, and I knew that I had something. And so it was more like a relief when I got off stage and did well, that people started like, that my parents started believing like that I was good, like, because I got that feedback from other people. Because I was worried that I would mess up or something, and my parents would be like, okay, like, it was like, she's okay. But I just knew that I was going to do well. Like, I just wasn't nervous for that for some reason. Mostly, maybe I was just trying to calm my parents down because they were freaking out. So I just had to like be a little bit calmer than they were. Yeah.
Do you have any hesitation in writing songs that you're going to reveal something that's too intimate that you don't want your parents to hear, or you don't want Brandy, who's your parents' friend, to hear?
It's a good question.
I mean, I think like the best thing about music is like the feelings that you write about are never things that someone else hasn't felt before. So like if I'm writing about a specific feeling, I don't think I'm ever scared that to share it. I mean, it's a vulnerable thing. So like if I wrote a song like Damage, I didn't show that to anyone for so long because it was just like revealing that I had felt that way was vulnerable, but the actual feeling itself, I knew that my mom had felt that feeling before, like Brandy had felt that feeling, or one of my friends or fans or anyone. Like, I think there's just like the universal aspect of songwriting. That's what makes it special.
Yeah, we're all so narcissistic. All we think is, I can relate to that.
Yeah, exactly. I will relate any song back to myself.
We don't even think about you long enough to go, I wonder when she thought those things.
Yeah, I know. It's like sometimes I feel like I listen to music just to try to learn more about myself. You know, it's like
this song was written for me.
Yeah.
No, I know. It's true. We're human beings, man. We're just critters. You're right. We have felt it all before. And that was a really good question. That never occurred to me. But like, yeah, you know, and there's been a strange crossover with me and Tish becoming peers, but also having this kind of family latitude that's happening.
Yeah.
Because me and Kath and Glennon and Abby, like we're all raising daughters. We're all raising kids, you know. So we have this connection. But then I think just out of pure, unchecked talent, Tish and I have found a parallel course that's just different. It doesn't cross over. You know, I find myself cursing. I use the filthiest. I have the filthiest mouth. And the things I talk about, I'm like a sailor. And I would check myself around Tish's brother and sister, but I wouldn't check myself around Tish. It's like she's in a band with me or something. And I wouldn't even want Glennon and Abby to know the shit I talk about or the way I talk because it's different. This is another dimension. That's the family dimension. But there's like, we're rock and rollers, me and Tish. Like we have this other language that's just sort of ours.
Yeah. In so many different ways too. Cause like, I don't know. I feel like part of the reason why I like talking to Brandy with like other people is like, I feel like no one gets it. It's like, we like make music together, but like, and like we have this mentor relationship and she's like, I don't know, like another mom to me, but like, we're also just like friends. Like we like went to the Boy Genius concert together and we're just like talking like friends. There's like so many different aspects of our relationship.
Yeah, that's true, isn't it? It just goes to show like anything's possible.
Yeah, because I was thinking from your perspective, Brandy, because Tish is your friend's kid and I have a kid and I know when I get together with other parent friends, we talk about our kids, but then you don't actually have the type of relationship now that you all have been in the trenches working together. You never really get the opportunity to get that close with them and really know them as a person.
Yeah, and I kind of feel the trust from Glennon and Abby too, like, and even Craig. Like, I feel the trust from them that they trust me and Tish's friendship, but also that they know that it's not an extension of their parenting. It's totally different. And there's trust there because they actually can't trust me to implement their parenting in my relationship with Tish. Like, we're going to say whatever Tish needs to say because it's a different relationship. And that's actually quite cool. I've never thought about it till just this moment.
How long did it take you to get comfortable with Brandy, Tish? In the studio, in that domain, like, I'm sure it was kind of like super intimidating.
Yeah. I had like shadowed her for a day or 2 days when she was recording with Brandy Clark.
Yeah.
And so that was when I was kind of getting familiar. And I remember being so uncomfortable. Like I was so nervous and like didn't know what to do with myself. But I think that I think the second I got into the studio to record my songs, like I don't remember feeling any discomfort. Like I just think right away I felt very comfortable. I think it came from like just starting out Brandy and me on the couch just playing through my songs and trying to figure out if we were on the same page about them. I think that helped a lot.
It also came from you shadowing too, because you saw me working with another 45-year-old adult, and you saw that we change things. We still make changes to these songs and to these chords. And then you could see that changing things isn't akin to fundamental criticism. It's just kind of part of creating. And, you're like a real artist. So you're not touchy, but it means something to you when something gets changed. A chord or a lyric. You have the final word, but I sense the just discomfort at first. And that discomfort is the tenet of is a basic tenet of like a true artist. And I think if you hadn't seen those changes taking place with an older artist, you may have had to confront some inadequacies, feelings of inadequacy that wouldn't be accurate. But having never seen production unfold before could totally be forgiven and understood. So yeah, you saw those things happen. You saw those changes get implemented. You saw that those songs were still Brandy Clark's at the end of the day, and that everybody went home happy. And then you and I got in the studio, and I think it was easier for us to tighten screws and make changes for that reason.
I also think watching you work with another artist, especially someone as like talented and like respected as Brandy Clark.
Yeah.
And then like see how like the level of respect or like how seriously you took her was similar to how seriously you took me. That was like super important for me to know in the beginning, because I didn't know.
Oh, that's cool.
I didn't know like what like the vibe was like. I didn't know if it was a favor or like I think that became clear to me in the beginning.
Yeah, I think that's really moving for you to even say or bring up that you ever wondered if it was a favor, and that's like a really cool, really strong and really vulnerable thing to say. And actually the answer is absolutely fucking not. I love you guys and I love your family, but music, like, I will cut through anyone like a hot knife through butter for music to prevail. And unless I really believe that it's great and I'm putting good art, into the world with the help of a good artist, then I would find other ways to support you.
How much music gets sent to you, Brandy? Like, how many people are trying to get you to produce them?
I get asked a lot, especially lately, by my heroes. Like, heroes are coming along. And I have to be really careful because I will gladly just jump into their skin and live their life, like happily. I'll get right into it. Their whole cause will become my cause. So I have to be really clear about where I'm at in my life and if I can afford to do that. I think I'm learning as a producer, I don't know how to casually make an album. I don't know how to make it a spiritual thing, not become really invested in that artist and their music, and then how that music is received after the fact, and then making sure that people are understanding that how important they are to the world. Like, I'm just a really mission-based producer. Mm-hmm. So I do get asked a lot, but I really probably couldn't do this more than once or twice a year, even if I wanted to.
How does it affect you outside of the studio? If you are working with an artist and you're jumping into their skin and then you have to go home and deal with everything that goes on at home, raising the kids, marriage, how are you able to figure
I usually
that
suck my wife into it, by the way. My wife then becomes invested in that person too.
Yeah.
It's just hard. Like, yeah, it becomes a family thing. Like, our whole family gets involved, and it's just so satisfying. Like, if that's what life is, great. I'm into it. I don't feel like there are any deficiencies, but I do know that like it's a magical feeling that I have to be careful I don't dilute by doing too often. So I do get a lot of music and I do get asked a lot, but I'm only going to do it a few times here and there when I know it's just spot on the right thing to do musically, like it was with Tish.
Tell me about performing at Brandy's Girls Just Won a festival. The venue was a little bit unconventional, the stage. Tell me from your perspective what that experience was like.
Just be honest, it's a pool full of gays. That's what it was.
I mean, I just think I always feel so safe in those. Like, I think I'm so spoiled with for some of my first big shows, I get to play in front of Brandy's crowd because they're so nice and they're so supportive, and maybe I'll have to go to the real world at some time soon and maybe people won't be as nice, but for now, I'm really grateful to be able to play in front of supportive crowds like that.
Yeah.
How was that for you, Brandy, being on stage with Tish?
I love it so much. I just like watching her stand there and just like have all this agency. She just like owns her space. I don't care who she's in front of. She's going to garner the same reaction, which is awe. Like everybody's in awe of like how this certainty is coming out of this person. And that certainty is comforting and beautiful, and it's wisdom, it's sage wisdom. People need it. And at the same time, you are so self-aware, Tish. I mean, I get as much from your interviews and these conversations with you as I do your music. I just think you're a really important voice.
Thanks.
Well, thank you both so much for doing this, and best of luck with the EP. And I can't wait to hear more songs in the future.
What a great chat. Thank you. That was a blast. And I can't wait to chat about my next project with you.
Thank you.
I love this podcast.
Oh.
Thanks to Tish Melton and Brandi Carlile for talking about their creative partnership. Tish's EP, When We're Older, is out now. And you can hear all of our favorite songs from Tish and Brandi, along with some of the songs mentioned in this conversation, on a playlist at brokenrecordpodcast.com. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/brokenrecordpodcast, where you can find all of our new episodes. You can follow us on Twitter at Broken Record. Broken Record is produced and edited by Leah Rose, with marketing help from Eric Sandler and Jordan McMillan. Our engineer is Ben Tolliday. Broken Record is a production of Pushkin Industries. If you love this show and others from Pushkin, consider subscribing to Pushkin Plus. Pushkin Plus is a podcast subscription that offers bonus content and ad-free listening for $4.99 a month. Look for Pushkin Plus on Apple Podcast subscriptions. And if you like this show, please remember to share, rate, and review us on your podcast app. Our theme music's by Kenny Beats. I'm Justin Richmond.